So, friends, as you know, absolute lawlessness continues in Russia. FSB raided houses of 13 participants, former participants of *ALLATRA International Public Movement, an organization focused on research on climate, international organization which takes part in United Nations conferences, which receives blessing from world leaders like Pope Francis. And Russian FSB, after a defamation campaign organized by Alexander Dworkin, this man here, who also has a single anti-cult network, basically organization through which he influences democratic states, bunch of journalists which are publishing articles on his command in European states. And now when FSB is raiding houses of *ALLATRA participants, you're not going to hear from any of his pawns about this thing. That's why it's so important to understand for yourself what's happening. So they published one of these videos in which they're breaking into houses of innocent people, dragging them by their hair, and then people were taken to the stations where they were beaten up. They were beaten up that much that there were broken ribs, broken noses, brain concussions, and that's a man who is dragged by hair in this video. And he was held there for 48 hours, forced to sign papers in which he's accusing himself and other participants. That's what they wanted. Now, there was also an elderly woman who was taken there. Again, none of them was allowed to contact relatives or lawyers. They were forced to sign papers with accusations against themselves. And what was it done for? Because Alexander Dworkin from Russian Raiders commanded to do so. So who has the real power in Russia? In the country in which democracy has been destroyed with the hands of Alexander Dworkin, who was actively participating in this destruction. So people were not only beaten up, like for example, women were threatened that they will be thrown to jail and their children will be sent to orphanages. There was one single mother of 3, and that's what they told her. If she's not gonna sign the paper with false accusations against *ALLATRA participants, that's what they're going to do. And they were telling her that other participants already signed such papers, which was false. So there was an elderly woman who was, she was taken there, and then she was taken to the cell in which beaten up person was, another participant. And there was such so-called law enforcement officer who was beating him up. Then she was taken to a different cell, and then that person entered the room, and he was staying there, kind of given her to understand that if she's not going to cooperate, the same thing is going to happen to her. Now, participants were taken by the cells in which torture rooms, in which people were tortured with plastic bags on their heads. While they suffocated, they were tortured with electroshockers. And they were shown that this is what is going to happen to you if you're not going to sign the papers with false accusations against yourself and other former participants of *ALLATRA. Now, this is what FSB is doing to participants, former participants, because since August 2023, when *ALLATRA was declared undesirable, nobody participates on territory of Russia, a country which, the only country that prohibited *ALLATRA and the only country that conducts repressions and where law enforcement is beating up participants of *ALLATRA. So then 9 people were let go after they signed the papers which under which they will not leave the vicinities of their own cities. They left with the criminal cases against them. Once again, they were taken there as witnesses. The searches were conducted against them as witnesses, but no evidence was found. There was nothing against them. So FSB was beaten them up to force them to sign false accusations against themselves. Nothing else was found, and they were brought there as witnesses, and they left with 10 criminal cases. 9 people were let go. 1 person is still held in a cell, and they said they're going to hold him there for at least a month. And as we know, why is this all being done? Because Russian Raiders commanded that the *ALLATRA International Public Movement has to be declared as extremist organization. FSB is actively executing this command right now, and by the available information, we know that by the end of January, beginning of February 2025, they are planning to declare *ALLATRA extremist. And this is what they're trying so hard for. Once again, the network of journalists who are working for Alexander Dworkin and Russian FSB in Europe have been smearing *ALLATRA International Public Movement for few months already. They published over 400 false smearing lying articles with copy-pasted phrases from Russian raiders. Exactly what Alexander Dworkin commanded them to do. And these false narratives are being spread by the people who working on FSB, working on Russian raiders, and working to destroy European democracy, European freedoms, and ignite civil outrest, and basically ignite hatred in democratic states from the inside, create a controlled chaos, which is exactly what Alexander Dworkin is trying to accomplish, exactly what they did with Ukraine. And if you're curious, there is a great article called Reuters Agents in Ukraine, Sabotage, Bloodshed, and Anti-Cold Plague. And this article describes how they have been sabotaging and destabilizing Ukraine from the inside through the network of Alexander Dworkin. Another great article to read is Europe Open Your Eyes, because this article, again, published on actfiles.org, it shows how this network of all these people connected to Alexander Dworkin is operating on territory of Europe. These are agents of Russian FSB, of Russian Secret Service, and of Russian raiders. They working directly on command of Alexander Dworkin. They barking at whoever Alexander Dworkin tells them to. And once again, why defamation, smear campaigns, all this stigmatization articles, why it's so dangerous? Because in Russia, it started exactly from the same thing. 10, 15 years ago, before democracy was destroyed entirely, the process of destruction of democracy, it goes through stages. And one of the stages is igniting hatred and, provoking violations of the law, of the constitution against its own citizens, right, who have to be smeared. First of all, this is how the democracy is being destroyed. Then legislation is being pushed of a certain kind. You can look it up what kind of legislation was pushed by Alexander Dworkin exactly in the very same articles, and what his agents are trying to do in Europe right now. And this simply shows that, the real manipulation, the real tyranny is coming not in the way that most people would expect. It's coming covertly, and it's a threat to everyone, to every person who lives in the free world right now, and whether it's Europe or the US, you have to know about this. So I highly encourage you to read, to make your own conclusions. And allatra.org is one website which you absolutely should read. There is a /about page on which you can see the whole history of persecution of Allatra by Russian raiders. And these atrocities which are being done to participants right now are directly the result of this coordinated defamation campaign, which has been ongoing for over a decade right now. So thanks for watching, and share your thoughts and comments, and share this video if you care about protecting your own freedoms.